everyone, it's Steven, and today I have the 2020 Range Rover. Yep, this is the top of the line Range Rover, so the flagship SUV from Landrover here, not the Evoque or the Sport or whatever. This is the top dog here. So you can see it's a really gorgeous looking car. I'm here in Orlando going to try and film this quick review before I leave my work trip here and talk through all of the different things, the exterior, the interior, go over the tech in this car, which is pretty interesting, and then kind of go over some driving impressions and then close with some overall thoughts. So before we dive in, wanted to shout out to a National Car Rental at MCO Airport for renting me this really cool car for the last week or so. It's been a blast to drive and I've had a lot of fun with this. So thanks again, and make sure to check them out whenever you're in the Orlando area. Alright, so jumping right in here with an overview of this car. This is the largest vehicle in Range Rover's lineup. You've got the really small Evoque, you've got the Velar, and then you've also got the Range Rover Sports, which actually comes in 3 rows, which is kind of interesting. And you've got the 2-row top of the dog Range Rover, and that actually only comes in 2 rows, but is significantly larger than all of the other vehicles I mentioned. So you can kind of see really quickly that this is a very luxurious SUV. I mean, the Range Rover name is such a classic in the auto industry, right? And the boxy look also just something that I feel like a lot of people instantly recognize. I'm pretty sure the Range Rover brand is just synonymous with luxury and feeling and off-road prowess, I suppose. I mean, I think that's a huge thing that a lot of people will appreciate with this crazy large executive SUV as well. So I mean, kind of just jumping right into some of the numbers here. This car MSRPs for over $90,000 for the base trim. You can see here I have got the HSE P400. That is one step up from the normals trim, and that gets you about $95,000 for the MSRP. It does come with quite a few more features though, so I really think the HSE is going to be a great trim that a lot of buyers will want to purchase. The main reason most people will want to go for the HSE trim is for the upgraded engine. So this comes with a turbocharged inline 6, and the normal base trim only gives you 335 horsepower, but when you step up to the HSE trim, you get almost 400 horsepower, which is what that P400 stands for. It's actually 395 horsepower and 410 pound-feet of torque. This all goes through an 8-speed automatic and gets you 0 to 60 times of about 5.9 seconds on this HSE trim, which is quite impressive for such a large SUV, right? Really, when you floor this, as I'll demonstrate later in the review, it feels really good. It's comfortable, it's dynamic, and the adaptive air suspension on this really makes it an enjoyable ride. Comfortable, sporty, it really has all of it. And of course, the off-roading is, a really important part to Land Rover's heritage. Obviously, most of the people buying this car honestly are never going to be off-roading this car, let's be real. But it's really cool to know that that is an option. Some of your other engine options are the turbo diesel, which is actually offered only on the HSE trim, and you've also got the crazy supercharged V8 on the top line SV autobiography trims. And of course, speaking of the engine choices, like I mentioned before, the HSE P400 comes with the turbocharged inline 6. This actually used to be a supercharged in previous years, but recently Range Rover decided to switch over to a turbocharged engine. Actually, I feel like I really miss the supercharged line. I feel like that'd be really cool, right? But yeah, the engine bay, nothing too particularly exciting about this, honestly, compared to some of the other sportier rivals in the segment. This really isn't the most exciting. Alright, I wanted to give you guys a quick taste of how the engine sounds when you first start the car. So, kind of like every other car, foot on the brake, and then you can push the start-stop, and it turns on there. And then I'll rev the car a little bit as well, and you can hear how that sounds. One cool thing to note actually is that you do get some pretty good mileage with this car, which is kind of surprising, right? Like, I would expect something like this to be a huge gas guzzler, but you get 19 city and 25 highway, which gives you about a combined average of about 22, which really is not bad in this segment, especially with the way these cars usually guzzle the gas. So you really can't talk about the Range Rover without talking about its iconic styling, right? The Range Rover has really stayed very similar to its roots, some minor exterior and interior refreshes over the years, but that boxy styling just seems to really win over, the typical American, and honestly, probably the rest of the world as well. you've got some really nice 20-inch wheels here. I do feel like these could look a little nicer. I definitely think the blacked out wheels look much nicer on any trim level, so I would highly encourage you guys to, check that option out as well. There is actually a long wheelbase version of this. Zooming out here, you can kind of see the full length of the car. It's a large car, right? But there is a longer wheelbase version that actually gives you an extra 7.5 inches of rear legroom. That is absurd. I mean, look how long this car already looks from this angle. They've done a really good job over the years with maintaining the styling on the outside to keep it looking modern, even though it's, definitely an older look, I suppose, but it still looks very modern. That chrome bar that goes across the middle, really, really great attention to detail there. I really wish they had, an LED light bar in the back, kind of like all the other cars that I really like right now, like the Audis, and I'm trying to think of some other ones right now. I'm kind of blinking, but I really like them all. The taillights here look really, really nice as well. You've got, of course, full LEDs like you would expect from a vehicle with almost $100,000 on the price tag. All right, so let's go into the trunk and see what the storage looks like in this crazy vehicle. Of course, you've got some power controls here, and you've actually got the lower liftgate, of course, like most other large executive SUVs in this class. And you've got a lot of space here. I actually think this space looks like there's more than there really is. I'm not really sure why, but Land Rover quotes about 34 cubic feet of space back here, which is really nice. But if you guys remember, take a look at my other review of the Atlas Cross Sport, there's 40 cubic feet of storage in that one. And it kind of amazes me that that's more storage than here. You've got some really nice seat controls back here, of course, as you would expect from a premium vehicle like this. You can actually lower the car from here using these buttons to make it easier for you to load things in. You also have power folding seat controls for the rear seats, which is another really nice luxurious touch. Finally, you've got an outlet as well in the trunk, which really shows you that this car means business as an off-road camper. Doing a quick move back to the front of the vehicle, you can see that we've got the nice black painted brake calipers here. I really still feel like the blacked out wheels would look a lot better here, but you have to admit that these wheels still look pretty good, especially given the overall appearance of this boxy SUV. And before moving to the interior, I wanted to show you guys what those gorgeous lights look like. I really love the design of these LED headlights. They look very, very striking and aggressive, and honestly just iconic. I feel like there's not a better word for it for the Range Rover here. You've still got that grille. I literally feel like this grille has been around forever at this point. And I really do think this car is kind of in dire need of some sort of refresh at some point, or maybe just the next generation. But it still looks so good, and that really impresses me. So I feel like when you think of a Range Rover and you look at the outside, you really don't see a $100,000 vehicle, right? It's more of the brand and the name you're buying into at that point. But once you go to the interior, you understand why this car is priced the way it is. So, I mean, immediately just looking at the doors, you can kind of see that there are so many high quality materials, right? Nothing in this car is not high quality. The cabin is honestly only the nicest material here, and that's really what you would expect though, right? Again, remember the price tag of this is over $100,000. That is going to be something that turns away a lot of buyers from this car, especially because there are cheaper alternatives in this segment, such as the GLS, the X7, those different SUVs offered from the other German competitors. But overall, this is still going to be an iconic vehicle with a really, really nicely anointed interior. For example here, take a look at the passenger side door. You have three-way memory for your passenger. You have lumbar support, 20-way adjustable power seats for the passenger as well, and everything here is leather. It's all leather. You've got the Meridian sound system on the side. The 13 speakers sound amazing in this car. Really, really great sound system. Really, really nice upgrade that you get. And you just have luxurious touches all throughout the cabin. I can't stress that enough. The sensor really does look very modern, but I do feel like there's a lot of issues with the tech that I will discuss in a moment. I love the displays, the digital displays on the actual steering wheel. I know that's a polarizing topic here, but I really do think that I don't know if this is honestly the way I would do it. I kind of feel like these are weird remote control looking things. Maybe having a more modern, sleek display, like kind of taking the entire area here would be nicer. But I still feel like they did a really good job kind of integrating that interface into the rest of the car, right? You've got the classic look on the outside, and you've got this very high-tech digital display on the inside. And I feel like that's kind of what Range Rover is going for here. Taking a look around the cabin, you can see that you've got really good visibility. Of course, that's one of the biggest reasons people love SUVs, but with the Range Rover being such a huge vehicle, having good visibility is very important, especially if you're off-roading. Then you see this huge pano sunroof on top, and it looks really good. Everywhere around you, it kind of feels like you're in some sort of, you know, I guess like a plane or something like that, a very luxurious plane. Taking a look at the rear seats, which will be where the executive sits, you can still see that you've got such nice materials, right? This leather is so comfortable and supportive. You've got the wood trim on the door panels and the nice speakers. You've also got power reclining seats. That is something that comes in the HSE trim and is a very, very special touch here, I feel. The way you open the door also just looks very, very fancy. I will say I don't really like the location of the door handles, but it looks nice, I suppose. Overall, you've got 3 very usable seats back here. Obviously, the middle seat is not going to be the most comfortable, but at the end of the day, any of those seats would be a great place to stay. You've also got tri-zone climate control here. Quad zone is available in the higher trims. This thing is wood-lined and just looks fantastic. You've also got heated rear seats, of course. One thing I wanted to highlight here are these really cool buttons on both rear seat passenger sides. You've got the mute button, which means as you know you're being chauffeured around in your Range Rover, you can simply click the mute button. No, I missed that and I am closing the sunroof. But you can actually mute all the music with this button right here. Both passengers can do this. And then with this one, of course, as I just demonstrated, and you probably could hear, I just closed the sunroof there, or the sunshade for the sunroof. And then you've got some nice reading lights too. So this one you can see has a laptop icon. So this is for laptops, and this here is for books. And then finally, you can actually choose which windows you want to roll down. You can choose to roll down only your neighbor's window. You can choose to roll down only your window, or both. How cool is that? Those are the luxury touches that really make this a Range Rover and something that is deserving of the $100,000 price tag. Another neat little tech feature I wanted to call out is this pedestrian detection system here. These are on both rear seat passenger doors, and basically this allows you to figure out if you're able to open your door or not and not hit someone, or a moving car, a moving object such as a bicycle, or just a running pedestrian. It lights up orange, kind of like a blind spot monitor for the passengers. Take a look at these headrests. They are so massive and leather lined, and they look so good. You've got these massive bolsters on the side of your seat that make it really, really comfortable. Honestly, one of those things where you have 20-way adjustable seats, and I really couldn't figure out what was the most comfortable position. I feel like there was a new one every single day. You've got such large seats and really great padding. And I just feel like all of these touches make this car feel so comfortable. Definitely a great car to be chauffeured in. You've also got armrests that you can actually adjust with that little knob on the end of them, and choose where to set the height. Of course, the middle armrest is actually where I feel like I spent most of the time putting my arm on, but all of this feels really, really good and really, really luxurious. The interior is certainly deserving of a $100,000 price tag. So here's a neat luxury touch on this vehicle. You actually have these 2 power control buttons here that open up different parts of this glove compartment. It's actually a 2-part glove compartment. So the top one unlocks this top part, which is actually spring-loaded, and you can put your sunglasses in here. And then the bottom one opens up your glove box, and that is completely power controlled, which is super cool. Now, I did want to make sure I go over the key before moving on here. So this is your typical Land Rover key. I'm a little sad that there doesn't seem to be anything special about this, right? You're in the Range Rover. You're not just in a typical Land Rover Discovery or something like that, right? You're in the full flagship Range Rover SUV here. You do have some cool touches, right? I kind of like this little interesting red thing here that shows that you have to double click it to lock it and stuff like that. And then you've also got this light button here where you can turn on the lights and flash them essentially to make sure you can find them in a dark parking garage. Of course, you've got your tailgate opening, and then you've also got your panic button. Unfortunately, the tech is really where this car does not shine like it should. For $100,000, you really feel like you'd get all the features, right? But this car doesn't come with ventilated seats. That is absurd on a trim like the HSE, right? I understand maybe not putting it on the base trim, but on the HSE, I would certainly expect ventilated seats. It also doesn't come standard with adaptive cruise control. I don't understand how that's possible on a car that is over $100,000. This is supposed to be a luxury vehicle that has all the features. I really would expect that. It also doesn't come with a heads-up display. That I can kind of forgive, but I still feel like is an oversight on Range Rover's part, right? You can't compete with some of the German brands when you can get every feature available for about $100,000, or you can have this car, right? It's a very difficult thing to compete with. All right, all that being said about the tech, there are really good parts of this car, right? The interior is very modern. The dual screen display, they do look really good, but I feel like it kind of gives that same impression that Infiniti does, right? It's weird. These are 10-inch displays, and they're huge, they're very HD, they look good, but something about them just doesn't feel quite as luxurious about the large displays that Mercedes has, you know, for example, on the Cadillac Escalade, right? Or, you know, any of the other large competitors in this segment. They just feel a lot more luxurious. The problem with these touchscreens is that they're very, very slow to respond. It's just unacceptable at this price point, right? You have a cool, and honestly, the infotainment itself is pretty cool. It looks good. I really like having Apple CarPlay take up the entire screen at the top, and then I will pull up the media in the middle, which is really nice. Like, I like the configurability here. It does look really cool. These dials are a neat touch. They're a little out of place. I don't really like the volume knob being down here because it's a little hard to reach when you're not actually looking in the middle. But, you know, overall, it looks nice. I just don't think that it does the function in necessarily the best way. Some of the infotainment is confusing, and I can kind of demonstrate here. You know, it's slow, right? Like, I touched the settings button, and it took over a second, I think, to actually load this, and it just really doesn't feel like a luxurious car. That being said, it's still not a bad touchscreen, right? It's not the worst thing you'll experience, obviously. It's still a really nice touchscreen, but it's just slower than it should be for a car at this price point. You do get a fairly nice backup camera, right? The resolution looks fairly good, actually extremely good here. And you can kind of see that we don't have the surround view camera. Again, $100,000 car, doesn't have a 360 camera. I'm not even in base trim, kind of weird. You do get 360 sensors, but that's kind of expected at a car at this price point. And of course you get all the normal stuff like blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alerts, you know, automatic emergency braking. All those safety features do come standard, which is really, really nice. But I do think some of those high touch features like the heads-up display, 360 camera, those need to be on a car at this price point. And truthfully, I would even expect massaging seats. This car, it has a cool interface, right? You can touch these things, you can do interesting things like turn on the heated seats and the cooled seats if you have them. It looks cool, the interface is interesting, but I feel like they just missed the mark on actual practicality. I feel like this car does a good job looking really nice, but once you start using the car, it gets a little questionable. My real gripe here is, what is the point of this second screen? I think Range Rover's goal was to have the top screen be your infotainment and the bottom one be more of your settings, like climate control, obviously your seat controls, vehicle settings, except these are just really your drive modes, and, you know, a few small things here. But really, this isn't, it just doesn't feel necessary. And I think it's a luxurious touch. If they could speed up these systems, it would be a lot more you know, competitive in this segment, but I think right now the problem is that it's slow to respond, it's sluggish. Again, not the worst thing in the world, but when you're paying $100,000 plus for a car, you expect crisp, clean, quick responses. For example, here's a nitpicky thing that is kind of buggy on this car. When you change the driver's side temperature, even though these are synced right now, you'll notice there's a delay between when this one changes to when that one changes. So, alright, let's go to the 12.3-inch display digital gauge cluster. This is good. I feel like if they didn't have a digital gauge cluster in a car at this price point, I would be really, really upset. I feel like it's one of my favorite features in cars these days. And it looks good. I feel like it looks very similar to Audi. And I do think the part where this car really accelerates with the tech are these, you know, these digital displays on the actual steering wheel. That is a super cool touch. And watch this. When you click the menu button here, the buttons change on the steering wheel. That is really, really cool. This is what actually allows you to configure the different settings and stuff like that. But even this system here is not the fastest. I really feel like they could have improved some of this, you know, responsiveness. Like, look, I click and then it kind of sluggily moves along. And I just feel like that's really unacceptable at this price point. It looks good. The graphics are clean, but overall, it really isn't the best execution in my opinion.
However, it does look good, and you do get the option to configure some displays here, which is very neat and is better than some of the other cars. So you can go to the layout here. You can choose to have 2 dials or 1 dial, or the full map for the entire 12.3 inches. If you choose the 1 dial display, you can actually then furthermore configure which information you want to display on the left side versus the right side. That's really cool. I love the configurability of this. It's really, really nice. I will say they did a good job with the gauge cluster. I just have to say that I don't think the 2 10-inch displays in the middle are really up to par with how good the gauge cluster is. The last tech thing I want to go over that I'm sure a lot of people who buy this vehicle are interested in, is how does this car deal with off-roading, essentially. So this car is 4-wheel drive, of course, all the time, and you've got different things in the middle here to help you control that. So this button right here is really fun to play with. You can lift the car up or down. You can kind of see this in the video I'm playing right here. And you've also got hill assist with this button here, and this is going to be your low range mountain driving mode. So you do have really cool touches here. I really wish there was an auto hold button. I feel like that's something that's missing. I just reviewed the Mazda CX-9 and that has it. And a lot of other cars I've reviewed this past few months have that, but this car doesn't have auto hold, which is weird. So you've also got this little fun button in the middle of all of this. These are going to be your drive modes, and you can actually shift this to select it. If you depress it like that, what it does is it chooses the best suitable drive mode. So kind of like an adaptive drive mode selector. So kind of fun to play around with that button. You can see in the middle here, you have all of the different modes that are selectable. There's a lot of different off-road ones, right? You've got rock crawl, you've got sand, you've got mud ruts, grass, gravel, snow. Yeah, so there's a lot of different things here. Comfort is probably what most people are going to be picking. You've got eco, and again, dynamic. This is going to be your fun one. So yeah, definitely a lot of different options here, which is really good and gives you a diverse ability to kind of go really, anywhere with this car that a lot of other competitors wouldn't be able to go. And now obviously, I've talked about a lot of the faults of this car, and some of the cool tech features obviously make up for that, but this car really does shine because there are some luxury touches here that just other cars will not have. For example, when you start the car, it actually has this auto sunroof or sunshade opening feature, essentially, which is really, really cool. I can show you here, basically. When you first step into the car, the sunshade will actually open up. That's actually a setting in the vehicle, and you can choose whether or not you want that auto sunshade open to be a feature or not. Whenever you leave the car, it will also automatically close, so that's kind of why it opens when you first get in the car. Another example here would be your gear select here. So when you first start up the car, this is actually inside of this little center console stack here, and then it rises up, which is a nice little luxury touch. Your cup holders have some nice little rubber cushions on the side to make your drinks not move around. I will say the weird thing is that these cup holders are a different size. You'll notice this one is a lot larger than this one. You can fit most normal drinks in this one in water bottles, but this one, if you try to put a smaller drink in it, is still going to jostle around, which was kind of annoying. You've also got some really nice luxury touches on the doors, like I mentioned before. These are all digital displays. That is really, really cool. On the driver's side here, you actually have the ability to fold your mirrors, of course, change their position, and then actually lower the car as well. And then the lights in the back seats also feel very luxurious and look really good. I love that you can change whether or not you're reading or on your computer. That feels like a really nice touch, meant for only the highest of class. All right, guys, let's get this car on the road and see how it drives. So I think there's a lot I want to talk about with the driving dynamics here. This is a really fun car to drive. There's no doubt about that, and I think a lot of people will be really impressed with just how quiet this car is. I think that's the most impressive thing for me, is this car. I mean, I was going 70 on the freeway, and you can have a conversation with someone without raising your voice at all. And I think that is very impressive and feels very luxurious, right? I think that's what people are looking for when they're thinking of buying an expensive car, right? And I really like that. I think the serene ride is definitely a huge part of being in a Range Rover. I'm at a stop sign here, or stoplight, and barely hear anything. You hear my right turn signal, but you can't really hear the outside at all. I feel like this car is very well insulated. They did a really good job with that. This car does have the auto stop and start feature, which is kind of why it becomes so quiet at stoplights.
The adaptive air suspension is also very impressive here. When you first get in the car, it'll actually lower itself essentially to make it easier for you to get in. But once you start driving away, it'll actually raise itself a little bit and allow you to essentially get better driving dynamics. I think the really impressive part is that it's all automatic, so you don't have to worry about selecting the height at almost any time. And because of that air suspension that I just mentioned, you barely feel the bumps on the road. This is probably definitely one of the best cars out there for absorbing potholes and stuff like that, right? First of all, you're a large car, and then also on top of that, you have that adaptive air suspension that really makes sure that those imperfections on the road, you don't feel them. You are an executive in your $100,000 plus Range Rover. You should not have to feel any of the bumps on the road. All right, and here I just got on the freeway, going 50 miles per hour right now. You barely hear anything. It's astounding how quiet this cabin is, especially if you're not listening to music. I just feel like the cabin is so impressive. The quality clearly translates to the quietness and the luxurious features of the cabin. So clearly this car is a great SUV to be driving for your daily commutes, even for your adventures, road trips, right? This is going to be a really comfortable car, and that's definitely part of the price tag, right? But I want to talk about, what really makes this car such a legendary car, and that really is the off-roading prowess, right? I think everyone talks about it. I didn't get a chance to go off-roading on this trip, of course, being in the Orlando, Florida area, but I hear a lot of really great things about this car, and being competitive with things like the Jeep Wrangler, that's very impressive for a luxury SUV. But that kind of gives this car a weird niche to fill, right? It only is bought by people who are, very rich, obviously, and want the status symbol of Range Rover because there are better options. It's a fact that there are better options in this segment than the Range Rover if you're looking for things like sportiness, even luxuriousness. There are better options, but this car kind of combines it into the whole package and then, slaps the cherry on top, which is the Range Rover brand name, right? So I think all in all, this is a really great car to drive, if you have the money and you're interested in having, different types of adventures. It's a very versatile car, and I think that that's a pretty neat part of it. And of course, with this car being such a status symbol, you will attract a lot of attention with this. If you like that, this is a good car for you. And, it's such a great car for a daily commute as well because it's very comfortable. It does have a lot of standard safety features. So, overall, it's going to be a really cushy ride. It's a cool car to show off to your friends, and I've had a blast renting it. Just the problem is that with Land Rover's infamous unreliability, a lot of people talk about spending more days in the shop than actually days having the car. It gets a little rough because this is a hard sell compared to a lot of other really great quality competitors in the segment. And I think for me, the thing that really makes this a car I would never want to purchase is the fact that the infotainment is so buggy. There are so many issues with the infotainment I've had. I've had this car for a whole week now, and I can't even list the amount of things that have gone wrong with this car, I feel. They aren't deal breakers per se, but I think the whole package itself is the fact that this is a $100,000 car, and you're still dealing with stuff that, a smoother RAV4 or something like that would be, just as good. A 4Runner, right? The off-roading is going to be good as well. Kind of has the whole package. It's not a Range Rover, obviously, but I feel like you don't deal with these bugs and weird things like that. All right, so I really want to show you guys a rev here. Wow. Yeah. This car is quick. It's so quick. It's kind of insane, actually. The 0 to 60 time, again, is 5.9 seconds, and it honestly feels quicker than that, because I think it's just a large car, and it just feels like you're just, flooring it like that. The body lean, there's such minimal body lean for such a huge car. That is really impressive. I think Range Rover has done a really great job with the handling dynamics on this car, keeping it something that, is obviously four-wheel drive and very stable, but also, giving you a lot of fun, handling ability. I feel like cornering on this car doesn't feel bad at all. It doesn't feel like such a large car, which, is a huge compliment for this. So overall, that's really all I wanted to talk about with this review here. This car was a really awesome car to drive for the last week around Florida. I mean, honestly, you know, despite all of its flaws, it is still a Range Rover, right? There's something iconic about driving such a cool car, and, you know, there are still really, really cool luxury touches there. So thanks again for watching, everyone. You can check out my other videos here and subscribe down here. Make sure to leave me a comment, like it, whatever you want. Let me know what other cars you'd like to see me review in the future, and see you guys in the next video.